Welcome to the second volume in our series on junk silver. In this video, we will be exploring dimes, the favorite among junk silver stackers everywhere. Stick around to the end of the video. I'll show you how you can win some free silver for your stack. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying these videos. The first dime was conceived and born with the passing of the Coinage Act in 1792. It's the first dime of the United States. These are made in 89.24% silver, 10.76% copper, although some were minted in 100% copper. Although not junk silver by any means, in fact, a very limited number of these were struck but never circulated. I only put this here to show you the history and when the dime started. From 1796 to 1806, we had the draped bust dimes designed by Robert Scott. 1796 to 1797 had the small eagle design. 47,396 of these were minted, but these were considered to have an eagle that was too scrawny and weak to represent the United States. So it was redesigned again by Robert Scott, which gave us the heraldic eagle from 1798 to 1806, in which 422,010 were minted. 1797, they featured either 13 or 16 stars. From 1798 to 1807, they featured 13 stars. The lowest mintage of these was in 1804 at 8,265, and the highest mintage was in 1806 at 165,000. The draped bust dimes were 89.24% silver and 10.7% copper. The cap bust dime was minted between 1809 and 1837, although mintage during that time period was sporadic and some years were skipped altogether. It was designed by John Reich, but modified by chief engraver William Niaz. An adaptation of the cap bust dime was the cap bust small dentile type, which had about a 1 millimeter smaller diameter, and the border dentiles were spaced close together. A basic breakdown of that was the variety 1, which had the wide border, was minted between 1809 and 1820. Variety 2, the modified design, was minted between 1828 and 1837. A 29-year run of the cap bust dime was quite a run at all, but there was only 20 different dates in that. Total mintage was 11,710,194. The lowest mintage was in 1809 with 51,065 minted, and the highest mintage was in 1835 of 1,410,000. It had 89.24% silver and 10.7% copper. The seated Liberty dime was designed by Thomas Scully, and it was minted between 1837 and 1891, and it had a lot of variations in it. From 1837 to 1838, no stars were on the obverse. Philly Mint in 1837 made 682,500 of these, and they were struck only at Philly in that year. And in 1938, New Orleans made 408,034 of these, and they were struck only at New Orleans. In the 1850s, the silver content of the Liberty dimes were lowered to 38.4 grains from 41.25 grains to combat the widespread hoarding of silver coins. These coins have arrowheads on both sides of the date. In 1873, the weight was raised to 38.58 grains, and arrowheads were again used to mark those dates. Most miniatures of the seated Liberty dime seem to be estimated, so it's impossible to get an exact number of the total minted in all years. These are made of 90% silver and 10% copper for the majority of the run. In 1819, the U.S. Mint had a competition for the design of the new dime. They invited in 10 artists, but that never lasted long because the artists complained about the time constraints, regulations, and poor compensation. They said it was unfair, so the mint just opened up the contest to the general public. None of the several hundred submitted designs were selected, so they just handed it over to Charles E. Barber, and he designed the Barber Dime. Barber Dime ran from 1892 to 1916. It was very popular, replacing the 55-year-old seated Liberty design. The total mintage for all years of the Barber Dime was 504,515,051. 1894S is extremely rare. There was only 24 of these minted. And the 1895 O is very scarce, with only 440,000 minted. These are 90% silver, 10% copper, and now we're heading into true junk silver territory, whereas the Barber Dimes, a lot of them you're getting are slicks, worn down, perfect for junk silver. Before we move on to everybody's favorite dime, let me ask you to take a second to subscribe, like, ring that bell, and don't forget to hang out to find out how you can win some free silver. The Winged Liberty Head, or more commonly known as the Mercury Dime, favorite of stackers, junk silver enthusiasts the world over. It was minted between 1916 and 1945, designed by Adolf Weinman. It is believed that Weinman used L.Z. Stevens as a model. She was the wife of the poet Wallace Stevens. The total mintage of the Mercury Dime was 2.6 billion. Some of the key dates, or one of the key dates I should say, is the 1916 D, where only 264,000 was minted. And of course, keep an eye open for the 1942-41 overdate. A little side note here. Several Mercury Dimes were flown into space on July 21st, 1961 upon the Mercury 4 mission. Also, the U.S. Mint released a Centennial version in gold. It sold out in 45 minutes. There was 125,000 gold pieces made. These are 90% silver and 10% copper. Roosevelt died on April 12, 1945, after suffering with polio since 1921. He helped found the March of Dimes Foundation and was a staunch supporter right up to the end. The Roosevelt Dime honored a president loved for his war leadership and for leading us through most of the Great Depression. The Roosevelt Dime was minted from 1946 all the way up to present day. However, only 1946 to 1964 were 90% silver. It was designed by John R. Sinnock, but that's marked with a little bit of suspicion, as many called out the similarities of Sinnock's design in a plaque depicting Roosevelt sculpted by African-American artist Selma Burke, unveiled in 1945. Since 1946, there has been 11.3 quadrillion Roosevelt dimes minted, of which approximately 6,595,617,673 were 90% silver. These have got a reeded edge. There was no Philly mint mark before 1980 or any mint mark at all from 1965 to 1967. These do have a reeded edge, and in my opinion, these are a better bargain to pick up for junk silver for stacking than the Mercury Dime. And the reason being is that the Mercury Dimes are selling for a little bit more. A lot of people are stacking them away. Eventually, they're going to get rare, leaving the Roosevelt Dime, the 90% Roosevelt Dime, open for expansion. And that completes Volume 2 of our Junk Silver series. Our next video is going to be on junk silver quarters.